Roll call, please.
Ms. Acker? Here. Vice Chairman Koss?
Present.
Chairman
Present.
Rivka?
That's it. Rivka. That's it. All right. I will add that the third city council seat is, or the bid that went out is now closed. So, I think it would just be a matter of time before we retain some city council representation on the commission. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please read agenda item number 2 into the record.
Approval of the motion summary for the meeting held January 4th, 2017 is recorded and transcribed.
How does the commission wish to proceed in terms of adopting minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second said motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Akers and a second by Mr. Koss to approve. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please on the motion.
Ms. Acker?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Koss?
Yes.
Chairman Rivka?
Yes. Okay, please read item number 3, agenda item number 3 into the record.
Update of the firefighter paramedic certified list.
Okay, Chief.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. We're requesting approval of the certification of the firefighter list. We'll be adding 5 names to that. Just to give you a little bit of a background. On March 24th, we pulled 63 names who were eligible to be tested, of which 17 had failed. Ultimately, we ended up, the next step in the process was the agility test. We had 12 participants show up for our agility test, of which 8 passed, 4 failed. And with that, through the interview panel, we had people that failed out of that, but we're requesting 5 names to be added to the list. Just to give you a little bit of background, you'll be seeing us here in the next couple months several times. We're actually planning on 4 agility tests this year as we continue to ramp up and build our part-time program, which got kicked off last year. So that's part of the process, and it's my recommendation that the board moves forward with this.
Okay, I can ask a question.
Sure.
Starting in 2015, the budget in 2015, you started aggressive hiring of part-time positions. What drove that?
This was driven from many years ago. Our department had a part-time program 20 years ago that just did not work for a multitude of reasons. With that, part of our staffing process, part of our levy was to increase our staffing. It was part of our strategic plan. With that, we committed to hiring up to 18 new full-time positions, including with that was a part-time process. I can tell you that from the union standpoint, the union wasn't favorable about that, but we continued to work with the union throughout the process, and including in the last collective bargaining process to settle the concerns with that. The thing about a part-time program, it provides many benefits to us, and actually the last 2 full-time people we have hired were part-time personnel. And the nice thing about them, they were able to immediately slide into those full-time positions without any additional training. So that's what we look at this as a potential. But having said that, previously, the last time we did an update of our civil service process, we had much discussion with the civil service board at that point in time, because one of the things that we were looking at was initially was a requirement that you had to be part-time with us before moving on to a full-time basis. And we backed off of that because there were some concerns that we may end up missing somebody that's very good that does not want to work part-time for us. So my commitment to the board as well as to our firefighters, no matter how you look at it, I will make sure that we get the best firefighters regardless of full-time, part-time for our department.
Thank you. So you still have 13 vacancies in part-time, so do you expect to aggressively hiring against those?
Well-
You start closed and it all depends on the candidates that come
Oh,
in.
and I think that's a very valid question, and I can really preface that by, in 2010, our fire levy made the commitment of hiring the 18 full-time people. And I could have hired those 18 people just from that initial list, but it wasn't about getting the personnel, the quantity, as it was the quality.
I understand.
So that's why actually we just got up to 61 personnel full-time just this past year. So it's taken us a while to do that. But my commitment, again, going back to the Civil Service Board, city administration, and our firefighters, was I was going to hire the best people for that. And it's just not filling boots, about filling the right boots. So I don't want to be up to this at this point in time. And
I support that. I'd rather have, the sports hire on those candidates coming in to select as opposed to just getting a body, because those bodies, once you got on board, they're a little volume what you think they are. It's a tremendous idea.
And that's always been part of the concerns that the firefighters have, is that you're having them work half the hour. So, there's a bond, as you know, with firefighters, police officers working together. And our part-time, I want to make sure we have that bond with them, and it has worked out very well for us.
Do you have any problems with the candidates you do get on board leaving for full-time permanent positions if you don't have this?
Part-time, I don't think, we've only had one part-time person leave, and the only reason why he left was because he could not work the hours having a full-time job outside of the fire service. So his employer said, look, you're going to need to make a decision, either go towards the fire service or, part-time, or stay with us. And obviously he was married, had a family, and I certainly understand that.
And it's good to see the fire levy pass over in the township east of us.
Yes.
Some area stuff. So
Absolutely.
it was a 2-to-1 ratio that it passed.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Another question, if I may. Do you get to reprogram any of the funds that materialize due to hiring delays?
From the fire department standpoint, our fire department has a fire levy that it operates. It's based on the income tax. The money generated from that levy can only be used for the fire service. So whether I spend all the money into my budget or not, it gets rolled over and stays in that account and gets reappropriated. So it cannot be utilized for any other service other than the fire service.
But if it's not used for fire service wages, it can go to supplies for EMS, et cetera.
No. Okay. Based on the budget, there's basically 3 different categories. One, personnel, which includes that includes really the salaries of the firefighters and the benefits. Then we get into what I call operating funds. Operating funds will be your electricity, your training, your hiring process, because that comes out of professional services, and also the third one being capital items. I cannot take money from operating and put it into personnel, and I cannot take money from personnel, put it into operational. But I can interchange that. Approval of the city manager and the finance director, that money can be reappropriated within those categories. But at the end of the year, as I said, it goes back in, we get a reappropriation of funds based on the next year's.
Chief, is it, just for the full picture, is what we're talking about when you build a new station, that levy money also goes to pay the debt for the station as well?
And let me just finish where I was also. If there is a need for money for, let's say we've overexpended personnel, one thing that we could go back, and council's not very favorable about that, is request a supplemental. There is a possibility throughout the year to possibly make a modification, but that's very, very few and far behind. Council in particular does not care to see supplementals. The second item, with our fire levy, as you know, we've built a 3rd station. Later this year, we'll be breaking ground on our 4th fire station. That money that the fire department also receives pays for the construction, all the construction, the furniture, everything out of that. So our funding is really we're a complete self-solvent organization.
So the staffing for the new fire station down at Cheshire Grove, that is all going to be coming from within your existing staffing ceiling?
That is correct. And as we continue to build the part-time program as well.
Chief, is it fair to say you're trying to ramp up the part-time in advance of opening the station, so you don't have to hire 20 guys when it opens up? You want to have them already trained in advance of starting. It still be a little bit above capacity until you open up the station.
That is correct. And I should also say, our city council and myself during the fire levy, we talked about hiring 18 new positions. As we continue to grow, and the city manager knows that I'm going to be coming back asking for more personnel, because as our city continues to grow and our tax base continues to grow, there's certainly going to be the need for additional personnel. So we will not stop there. And my commitment has always been to our firefighters in the city. Our key personnel are our full-time personnel. And I plan on continuing to grow that as well.
Thank you for the tutorial. Any questions?
None from me.
Okay, how does the commission wish to proceed? The chief recommends that we approve it.
I will move that we approve the firefighter certified list as presented.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Cox and a second by Ms. Akers. For the discussions, I think we killed that. Roll call, please.
Ms. Acker? Chairman Cost?
Yes.
Chairman Rivka?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please read agenda item number 4 into the record.
Item number 4, update of the police officer certified list.
Okay. Chief Kujanowski.
Thank you. The list in front of you has the addition of 6 new names. We recently went through another process. I think at the last meeting or prior to that, we talked about how we changed our name pool from NTN a little bit to try and pull more candidates in, and I can report that that was successful. We had a large slate of candidates that were actually recent tests, and of the ones we brought in, I believe we had 9 come in for our PT testing, which was about more than double than what we've been getting recently. So I think our concerns about the list growing stale without a fresh test was valid. So we actually did succeed in pulling in more numbers. Out of those that took the PT test, we ended up with, I believe it was 19 interviews that passed. You find on the list as added to the list as of May 3rd in the column on the far right. So they're added to the continuous list where they slot in with their final score.
So the comment in the right-hand side up at the top right corner, Passover one, what is it?
Rule, if you're on the list and someone below you gets hired off the list, that's considered a passover. If you get passed over 3 times, then you come off the list.
So does that say somebody who had a lower score was selected?
Correct. So right now our candidate number 1 was not selected. Someone below him was and was hired, so he got the one passed over.
Okay. So in the 17 budget, you got position increases, one for full-time
One full-time
officer
position.
and one part-time for the
That's park control, correct.
you don't know hiring on those.
We're in the process. We have the backgrounds done.
Good. Any further questions, guys?
Nope, seems pretty straightforward to me. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So how does the commission wish to proceed? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the list as presented.
I will second the
Okay,
motion.
we have a motion. And Ms. Akers, second by Mr. Goss. Any further discussions? Rival? Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Acker?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cost?
Yes.
Chairman Rivka?
Yes. Please read agenda item number 5 into the record.
Item number 5, update of police sergeant certified list.
Chief.
Thank you. This is the current promotional list that was established last year. We hired one off this list, Sergeant Jamie Brubaker. I don't anticipate any sergeants leaving in the next year, but by extending this list, and what I like to do, I think the top says that the expiration is July of 2018. I actually like to just do it 6 months. That kind of splits the difference. If I have someone leave in 18, then I would retest it. A year and a half is probably a good middle ground between having to redo the process versus making it available for guys who weren't interested or who weren't eligible previously. So I'd like to actually do that by 6 months if I can, and have it expire at probably January 6th, 2018.
Yeah, that's no problem. Rules and regs say you can, the list is good for a year and you can extend it up to a year. So that's 6 months off. So we'll go to January. And Officer Brubaker successfully completed his probationary 6 months.
Trying to think.
You're trying to think if 6 months has passed, or trying to think if he's successful?
Oh, he's not going to have a problem. Yes, I don't think
He's good to go.
That awkward.
Congratulations. Bill.
He's all right.
The commission approves, the chief wants approval from it. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Constant, a second by Ms. Akers. Roll call, please.
Ms. Aker?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cox?
Yes.
Chairman Rivka?
Yes. Please read agenda item number 6 into the record.
Item number 6, review of police hiring process.
So this age limit was increased to 45 in 2006. Does anybody have any background on why that's done?
Russ Martin, now current sheriff, he was, I don't know the background on why he did it. I know he was looking for maybe some non-traditional candidates. He was interested in seeing if we get some more mature candidates in. I don't think, we went from 35 to 45. And in all those years, I can think of one candidate we've had that exceeded 40. We would like to make the age limit consistent with fire. Also, when you do the math, if you hire in at 45, you're working potentially a police job till you're 70. So we kind of bring it in line with what fire's doing. That works out well with police and fire and medical insurance and Medicaid. So I think just based on what we're seeing and trying to be reasonable with what a career span could be like at age 70.
I was just thinking that they were trying to increase the base population to get in additional folks at the time. But
No, that was
we
more.
had some pretty good growth.
That was more designed at maybe getting a non-traditional candidate here and there.
Okay.
And I can just tell you, we updated ours at the same time. Ours was 31, and we increased it to 40. So it was exactly that at the time.
I mean, federal law enforcement, FBI, DEA, Secret Service, 30 cents.
And Lori, you did some research on the state. What is their number again?
On the state?
Remember the code that we can exempt out of?
Code, right, the code is 35.
You're allowed to go higher if you're a charter city and you pass it.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we're still above what the state. We can get in trouble if we say 30, for example. But we can go higher.
But there's no issues or appearance or perception of any kind of age discrimination since we went way above.
I would say because we're above the 30 and we're at 35 we're above 35, we're at 40. I think we're okay. This is one of those weird areas where you're kind of allowed to age discriminate because I guess the safety forces and code. If we pass something like that for non-safety forces, the city attorney would say, "Do not do that." But
the manager has a right to do this.
Yeah.
It's okay now without getting jumping feet. Okay. So how does the commission wish to proceed? Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the recruitment processes as presented.
Can we hear a second?
I will second that
Okay,
motion.
we have a motion by Mr. Costa, a second by Ms. Akers. Roll call, please.
Ms. Aker?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Cox?
Yes.
Chairman Rivka?
Yes. I'd offer comments to the public if they were here, but we'll reserve that for the future. So any committee comments?
None from me this month.
Good. Nope.
I will offer that I've been trying to do some research into national staffing standards for police and fire, to try to figure out if there are any help at all in looking at optimal staffing levels like how much does the city really need, but there are none. There are absolutely no national standards. But I came across a couple of statistics that I never saw before, but I thought I'd share them with you. And it talks in terms of police officers per population or capital by 10,000, those kind of things. So in Washington, D.C., which is the largest police presence in the nation, 1,000 residents. So they're the max. They have 500,000 people in the city every day. They got 10,000 tourists every day. So there's a lot of reasons for that. I looked at other cities in Ohio with populations over 50,000. And they range from 12 officers per 10,000 in Parma, Ohio, if I got that right, to almost 25 officers per 10,000 in Youngstown. Columbus measures about 22 officers. Again, their population is about 850,000. And we are at about 14 per 10,000.
So we're in that range.
I can tell you
So
that.
it's just
that
a point of
measure-
information. This is not to say that these are the metrics or how many we're supposed to.
Yeah, that measure are which it's really similar to making sure we maintain, shift strength and or the ratio is really arbitrary. What we also do when we look at our manpower is I look at utilization factors. So when we actually do want more officers, or every once in a while, I did it I think 2 years ago for the city manager. You look at the number of officers we have taking calls for service and how much of their time is utilized and what we want our utilization to be. So there should be a pretty high proportion of an officer's time on assigned patrol, because that's what creates that police omnipresence and creates the expectation that people will get and so much of your time on calls for service and tied up on calls for service. So then you take your manpower and you have to figure out training days and sick days and time off and work days and hours and time spent on calls for service, and you come up with you'll come up with a number and a relief factor of how many officers you need to staff one position per shift per day, and then you need to know how many positions you need per shift per day. And that gets you close to where you should be if you have a theory on what your utilization factor should be.
That's exactly what the current thinking is, use more workload driven things. But as you go toward community police, additional workload out there, even though it's not based on a call?
I think the theory with community policing is that if you're actually doing it right, your community then becomes a force multiplier. So one of the things we try to do is create non-traditional contacts, so non-enforcement contacts with people, and build some relationships in areas we don't really have relationships. That's a lot of what we're doing with the Delaware Community Coalition and with our school resource officers, with our community relations officer, with the new position we got approved this year as a community impact officer. His job is to create those opportunities for line officers and the community. He's not a advocate for any group or project. His job is to kind of be a PR guy and get more guys out on the street in a non-traditional way. And when you build those relationships and people build trust and you're making those deposits in the bank, then people start calling you. And we've seen that. We've had guys out doing some foot patrol, and someone will walk up and say, what are you doing? Oh, just kind of walking around talking to people. That's really great. Hey, by the way, there's a tree over there. The branch is covering a stop sign. So that's the force multiplier effect. So it might take some work in a specialized position, or it might take you out of that rotation on the calls for service, but the payback might be greater than that investment, and that's what we hope for.
It's good. Support that all the way. Any further committee comments? Okay, there being no further business to conduct, I would like to hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We're done. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good.